it is. There's the old path there, the old street. There's my truck, no cops. Very happy about that. But like I say, I better get moving anyway. There are none now, but there could be very shortly. There's a funny story about this. I had a neighbor when I lived above the bank, and he was kind of an odd duck, and he liked to expose himself in public. And I guess he got into doing a thing where he'd go into the bushes there and he'd jump out at people and stuff. I forget what they called him now. It's the towpath flasher or something. Anyway, he got into some trouble for that. It wasn't his first time doing things like that. But, yeah, I don't know what it was about him. He had something wasn't right anyway, you know. But yeah, I remember that. Anyway, there's a view of the soap factory and the shoe factory. This is where the old textile mill used to be. When I was in grade 1, I had a teacher actually threaten me that if I didn't smarten up and do better, I was going to end up working at the Tayside textile mill. I remember that. That was a threat. Oh my goodness. Oh, this door. The stupid repair that the guy did here. Let's see. Got to flip this up here to get it to... yeah, I'm gonna have to get something to flip it up with. What do I have that I can use? Oh, I can use a key. I'll use my key, I will. My God. Oh, you know what? I gotta lift the door handle while I do it. Okay, hold on here. There we go. Alright, there we go. Now it's better. That's flipped up in there now, so I can close the door. That happens regularly with this repair that was done. This jerry-rigged repair. Anyway, yeah, but I had a teacher who threatened me with that I was going to be, I'd end up working at the Tayside textile mill. Anyway, the joke's on her. It doesn't exist anymore. Joke's on you, Mrs. Merkley. Mrs. Merkley. I'm Mrs. Merkley. That's how she used to talk. Mrs. Merkley. Anyway, joke's on you, Mrs. Merkley. The Tayside textile mill is gone. Oh, well, she wasn't so bad, really. She wasn't so bad. You know, I'm just being kind of mean, making fun of her. But she wasn't so bad. I think we had teachers that genuinely cared about us in those days. They could be pretty harsh at times. Just like our parents could be pretty harsh. But I think that they genuinely did care about us. Anyway, and I'm grateful for that. And I think Mrs. Merkley cared about us. One thing I will say, years later when I worked for the school board doing custodial work, whenever I had to work at St. John's School, whenever I encountered her in the course of my work, because at that time she was semi-retired. She's quite an old lady at that time. She was always very kind and respectful to me. So I will say that anyway. But yeah, back in grade 1 though, she had a kind of a bias against me, which came from the first day of school. The first day of grade 1, we weren't told anything. And a bunch of us went into the school because we thought that's what we were supposed to do. We didn't know we were supposed to be in the back field, which was the playground, you know, which was just literally a field out back with rocks and trees and long grass and stuff. Anyway, it ended up that I was wandering around and I didn't know where I was supposed to be, so I thought, I'll ask a teacher. So I went into one of the classrooms, knocked on the door. I was very respectful. And this was a classroom belonging to a lady by the name of Mrs. Schaefer. And anyway, when she saw me in the school, she flew into a rage because I wasn't supposed to be there. And she physically took a hold of me and actually threw me out of the building. Like physically took me to a side door and threw me out of the building. And I guess she gave Mrs. Merkley a heads up anyway about me, because then when we got into the classroom with Mrs. Merkley, when she read our names off, when we had to tell her we were there, we had to say present when she'd read her name. When it came to my name, she looked up from the clipboard and she says, "Oh yeah, I've heard about you. like that. So I mean, anyway, I think that's what happened. I made a mistake the first day of school, and I got into a lot, and it kind of haunted me for a couple of years. Because the next year I ended up in Mrs. Schaefer's class, and she wouldn't even call me by my name. She called me the little dummy, and she made me sit apart from the other kids and stuff. So yeah, she said I wasn't fit to be seated with the other children. So anyway, that's the story there. But like I say, as harsh as they could be, and some of them were quite harsh, I think that they did genuinely care about us. Like if you were ever in any real trouble, they would help you. And I know when I got locked up in 1983, the principal of the school, Greg McNally, and the vice principal, Bill Doyle, when they found out what had happened, they tried to get me out because they didn't think I belonged in jail, and they tried to get me out. So I remember that. Anyway, that's enough of that. It's time for me to go. But yeah, anyway, my neighbor was a flasher. He was an old man, old man, and he used to jump out of the bushes here when there would be women walking along here. He'd have all his clothes off, and he'd jump out naked in front of them, scared them half to death. Anyway, he went to jail for a little while for that. And like I say, it wasn't the first time he had done something like that. Alrighty, we'll talk later. Bye for now.